Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing chemistry, paper 2, multiple choice extended, October-November 2022. Now this is a fairly recent paper, so let's get on. Question 1. The rate of diffusion of three gases ammonia, carbon dioxide, and methane is measured. What is the order of the rate of diffusion of the gases from slowest to fastest? Now remember, when I see this word diffusion, you have to be instantly thinking of MR, or the molar mass. And so we have to find the molar mass of the three gases that are given: ammonia, carbon dioxide, and methane. Well, let's write them out. Ammonia is NH3, carbon dioxide is CO2, methane is CH4. And now we have to know the molecular formula, the molecular mass of this. So this is ammonia weighs 17 grams per mole, and carbon dioxide weighs 44 grams per mole, and CH4 methane weighs 16 grams per mole. So we know the 16, this is the fastest, this is the second, and this is the third. Now the question is asking slowest to fastest, which we have to do the slowest first. The slowest first is carbon dioxide, and then ammonia, and then methane. So it is the first one is the correct answer. Number 2. Which description of Brownian motion is correct? Well, remember, Brownian motion is the random movement of particles, of the large particles. This is due to the fact that when you look under the microscope, you can see that it is being bombarded, it's being collided with smaller particles, such as water molecules or air particles. So the random movement of particles due to bombardment of smaller molecules, and this would be the correct answer. So B is the correct answer. Number 3. The chromatogram obtained used for four substance JKLMN is shown. Which statement about M is correct? Well, it is a mixture of J and K only. No. This is wrong. It is a pure substance. No. If it's a pure substance, it would only come out as one. It would only come out as one of the things on the diagram. So here, it's not a pure substance. As you can see, there are three substances that are being separated. Now, it is a mixture of J, K, and L. This is not correct, because it is a mixture of J, it is a mixture of K, because the RF value is the same, but it is not a mixture of L, because it does not have the same RF value, so it does not work that way. And so it is a mixture of J and K and an unknown substance, which is this one. This is the unknown substance. And therefore D is the correct answer. Moving on. Question number 4. Which statement about the isotopes of the same element are correct? Number 1. They are atoms which have the same chemical properties because they have the same number of electrons in the outer shells. This is definitely correct. This is why they have same chemical properties, because of the electrons in the outer shells. So statement 1 is definitely correct. Statement 2. They are atoms which have the same number of electrons and neutrons but different number of protons. This is definitely wrong. If you recall, the isotopes are the same number of protons but different number of neutrons and neutrons. And therefore, the statement 3, which says exactly that, is correct. So 1 and 3 are correct. So B is the correct answer. Question number 5. Which statement about solid magnesium oxide is correct? Now notice that it says solid magnesium oxide, and magnesium oxide is an ionic compound, so it's not covalently bonded. A is automatically wrong. B, it is an electrical conductor with mobile magnesium ions and oxygen ions. Well, this is not true, because it is in its solid form and not the molten form, therefore it cannot be mobile. Number C, magnesium loses electrons and these electrons move freely through a lattice. No, they do not move freely through the lattice. And this is talking about magnesium oxide, not magnesium. Oxygen ions and magnesium ions are attracted to each other in a giant lattice. correct. This is a giant ionic structure, and the oxygen ion, which is the negative ion, and the magnesium, which is the positive cation ions, are attracted to each other. So statement D is correct. Question number 6. Which of the molecules contain only 3 shared pairs of electrons? Well, it's obviously this is nitrogen, because nitrogen has 3 pairs, because if you look at its ionic compound, it is 2.5, 2.5, and they're going to be sharing 3 electrons each. And that is something that you have to know by heart. Number 7. Which particles are present in the structures of metals? In the structure of metals, there are positive ions that are present and mobile electrons that are present. And basically, it is a positive ion on the metal ion in a sea of mobile electrons, and therefore 1 and 4 are correct, so B is the correct answer. Question number 8. Caffeine is a stimulant found in coffee. Which formula represents caffeine? Well, caffeine, for this question, as you may look, oh wow, this is so dizzy, but it's not. It's actually very easy, because look at the structure, it's giving you a skeletal formula, which you don't really learn yet unless you are in A level. So you don't really learn about this. But the thing about here is it's asking you the formula. The formula is the molecular formula. It's a molecular formula, and therefore we just have to count the number of carbon atoms, number of hydrogen atoms, number of oxygen atoms, and there seems to be a nitrogen atom. So we just have to count them one by one. So let's count. So first, let's count the carbon atoms. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 carbon atoms. And how many hydrogen atoms are there? There are 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, 1 here, and therefore there are 10 hydrogen atoms. How many oxygen atoms are there? We can find that there are 2 oxygen atoms. And how many nitrogen atoms are there? There are 3 nitrogen atoms. There are 4 nitrogen atoms, so 4. So now you just have to write down the formula C8H10 and 4O2, and just find the formula that matches this. Which one is it? So it is this one. It is C. Okay. Moving on. Question number 9. Which sample does not contain number of atoms that are equal to the Avogadro constant? Well, it says does not contain. And this is a very tricky question, because you guys would not know this, because it says does not contain, so it cannot be equal to the Avogadro's constant. Now, what is the Avogadro constant? The Avogadro constant is 6.02 multiplied 10 to the power 23 atoms, molecules, ions, blah blah blah, or any amount. So this is 1 mole has the amount of each. Okay, so for this we have to calculate for each of them, and so let's start with nitrogen. Remember that mole is equal to mass over mR. Now let's calculate the mole for nitrogen. Nitrogen is 14 grams of nitrogen divided by how much? It is by 28. Its molar mass is 28, so it's going to give us 0.5 mole. This is nitrogen. And because nitrogen is made up of 1 mole of nitrogen is made up of 2 nitrogen atoms, we can say that 0.5 is going to be multiplied by the Avogadro's constant, and then going to be multiplied by 2, because there are 2 atoms in 1 mole of nitrogen. So if we multiply 0.5 times 2 is 1, so this is going to be equal to the Avogadro's constant. So number 1 is not it. So we can safely say that A is not an option here. Now let's look at the next option here we got. The next option is 6 grams of water, or H2O. Well, we have to find the same thing. Mole is equal to mass over mR. And the mass of water is 6 grams, and it is 18, so it will get 1 by 3. So let's get, this is 1 mole of water. And 1 mole of water contains 3 molecules, 3 atoms, sorry. It contains 3 atoms, which is H, O, and H. This is the water molecule. And because it contains 3, we have to multiply it by 3, and then multiply it by the Avogadro's constant. And as you can see, this will cancel out, so it will equal back again to the Avogadro's constant. So it is equal again, but the question asks does not equal. The number of atoms does not equal the Avogadro's constant, so this is wrong. Now, let's go on to the next one. The helium one is actually very simple, relatively simple, because it is a monoatomic ion. It is a monoatomic, so it is just like itself, so 4 grams, which is basically divided by 1 molecule of itself, so this is 4. 4 divided by 4, because, and then it is equal to 1, and 1 is being multiplied by 6.02, therefore it is equal to Avogadro's constant. So helium is not the answer. Now that leaves us with only D, but let's try out why it is D. So 28 grams, okay, and the carbon is 12, oxygen is 16, and we add them is 28 divided by 28, and we'll get a mole of 1 mole. And this 1 mole of CO2 of CO is made up of C and O. 1, 2. They're made up of 2 atoms. And therefore, it would be very reasonable that we have to multiply this by 2, and then we have to multiply it by 6.02, multiply 10 to the power 23. Now this would not be equal to the Avogadro's constant, which is only 6.02 multiplied by 10 to the power 23, but this would be twice the Avogadro's constant, and therefore it is not equal. Therefore, this is the correct answer. D is the correct answer. Okay, moving on. Question 10. The electrolysis of a concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, molten sodium chloride is shown. What are the products of electrode 1 and 2? Now remember, there's concentrated and this is molten. If it's molten, it's going to be either only sodium ion and the chloride minus ion. But when it is in an aqueous, it's going to be either Na plus Cl minus or H plus or OH minus. But seeing as it is concentrated, chloride ion is going to be selectively discharged, and the hydrogen ion is going to be selectively discharged as well. Now let's look at what the question really asks for. It's going to ask what are the products of the electrode 1 and 2. So this electrode 1 is a negative one. So a negative one, this is a cathode. And this is a positive one, electrode, which is the anode. So remember that anion goes to anode, and a cation goes to cathode. So in this one, hydrogen ion is going to be going to there, because it is the cation going to the cathode, the negative terminal, and here the anion is going to the anode, which is the positive terminal. So chloride ion is going to be selectively discharged. So H plus and Cl minus are going to be discharged in H respective cell. So here the electrode 1 would be hydrogen and the electrode 2 would be chlorine. So B is the correct answer. 11. When an acid is added to an alkali, the temperature of the reaction mixture rises. Which words describe this reaction? Well, this is because when acid plus alkali, this is, as we know, as a neutralization reaction. It is also known as an exothermic reaction because this reaction creates a lot of heat. It creates heat, and therefore it has to be D. Moving on, question number 12. Some properties of all fuels are shown. Which fuel is a gas at room temperature and makes 2 products when it is burned in plentiful of air? Now this is called a complete combustion. And which is a gas at room temperature? Well, there are only two here because hydrogen and methane are the only gases at room temperature. Octane is a liquid, wax is a solid. So C and D, we can cross that out immediately. And which one makes two products? Well, when hydrogen is burnt, it only produces water, and therefore it only is one product. But when methane is burned, it is going to produce carbon dioxide and water, and therefore it produces two products. So B is the correct answer. Question 13. The electrical energy or voltage of two simple cells is measured. Okay, statement 1. The voltage of cell 1 is greater than cell 2. Statement 2. Zinc is more reactive than copper. Statement 3. Magnesium is oxidized in both cells. Statement 4. Magnesium ions use electron to form magnesium ions. Which option is correct? Well, let's look at cell 1 and cell 2. Cell 1 has zinc, magnesium, and the cell 2 has magnesium and copper. And here, first thing that I like to do in these questions is I would like to write down the whole of the reactivity series. So for that, please stop calling me a careless zebra. Instead, try learning how copper saves gold. And this is the acronym that I usually remember by, but teachers, they can teach it in a lot of different ways. So the thing here is you have to notice is the magnesium, and the zinc, and then there is the copper below. There's the copper here, and yes, so there. So remember, in which one produces more power, the voltage produced depends on the further apart they are, the more voltage they produce. And so magnesium and zinc are not that far away from each other, while magnesium and copper are very far from each other. Now magnesium and zinc are in cell 1, magnesium and copper in cell 2. So statement 1 says that the voltage of cell 1 is greater than cell 2. That is definitely wrong because magnesium and copper are more far away from each other. It should be cell 2. Zinc is more reactive than copper. This is correct. Statement 2 is correct. Now magnesium ions, zinc is more reactive than copper. It is correct. Now magnesium is oxidized in both cells. This is absolutely correct because, let me erase this for a moment, because magnesium is more reactive than zinc. Magnesium is more reactive than zinc, more reactive than copper, and so this magnesium, the more reactive metal, is going to lose electrons, and losing electron is known as oxidation, and oxidation happens at the anode. Okay, so the magnesium is going to be oxidized, Mg2 plus 2 electron. So this is the general formula for both of the cells. So statement 3 is also correct. Statement 4, magnesium ion attempts to lose electrons to form magnesium ions. Nope. Yes, it is correct. This one is also correct. Okay. Now all statements are correct. No, only statement 1 and 3 are correct. No, statement 1 is not correct. Statement 2 is correct and explains statement 1. No, it does not really explain it. And statement 4 is correct and explains statement 3. Correct. Because magnesium ion loses electron to form magnesium ions, it explains that losing electrons mean oxidation, and therefore it explains statement 4 explains statement 3. So D is the correct answer. Moving on. Dilute aqueous sodium chloride is electrolyzed using carbon electrodes, which is the product at the anode. Well, in the anode, we have to know dilute. This is a dilute, so Na plus, Cl minus, H plus, OH minus. Now we have to know which one is going to be selectively discharged. Well, it says dilute, so the hydroxide ion is going to be discharged at the anode because, as I said, anion goes to anode. Negative ion goes to the positive terminal of the battery. So basically, there's going to be 4 hydroxide ions. They're going to lose electrons, and they're going to turn into oxygen, water, and 4 electrons. And this is oxygen is going to be produced at the anode, and therefore C is the correct answer. 15. The volume of gas given off in a chemical reaction is measured over time. The results are shown. At which time is the rate of reaction greatest? Well, now we just have to look at the steepness of the graph. Steepness of graph. If we look at here, the 6 seconds is the most steepest. This is not that steep. This is also not that steep. So this is the most steep. So it is 6 seconds. Moving on. Dinitrogen tetraoxide is converted into nitrogen dioxide NO2 in a reversible reaction. The forward reaction is endothermic. So the backward reaction is exothermic. Which conditions give the highest equilibrium yield of nitrogen dioxide? We want the highest equilibrium yield. Okay, first of all, we need to think about the pressure. The pressure, so there's 1 mole of N2O4 and there are 2 moles of NO2 on the other side. So pressure, when you increase the pressure, it will go from highest to lowest. But if you want it to go from lowest to highest, from low to high, we will need a low pressure so that we can achieve the highest amount of NO2. So low pressure, so 2 atmospheres, temperature, because the forward reactions are endothermic and we want the forward reaction, which is basically we actually just need the nitrogen dioxide, and it is an endothermic. Remember, the temperature, increasing temperature favors the endothermic change, and as a result, NO2 is the equilibrium yield of NO2 increases if the temperature is high. So A is the correct answer. 17. When magnesium is heated with zinc oxide, a reaction occurs. The equation is shown. Which substance is oxidized? Well, here magnesium gains oxygen, zinc loses oxygen. So gain of oxygen is basically oxidation. So magnesium is oxidized, zinc is reduced, and therefore magnesium is the correct answer. 18. X and Y are both oxides of 2 different metals. X reacts with water to produce aqueous solutions. C turns turbidity blue, so this is an alkali metal. We can know it from there. It is an alkali metal because it turns the indicator blue. And an aqueous solution of Y reacts with sodium carbonate, which is also a base, to produce carbon dioxide gas. And this means that aqueous solution of Y has to be acidic because it reacts with basic to produce carbon dioxide gas. Which statement is correct? Well, so X, as we know, has to be basic, which is a metal oxide, and Y has to be an oxide that is non-metal, and therefore C is the correct answer. Question 19. Ethanoic acid reacts with water to produce acidic solution. Which role describes the role of ethanoic acid and water in this reaction? Remember, the acid is always a proton donor, and the water in this case act as a base, and the base is always a proton acceptor, and therefore it donates a proton and the water accepts the proton. So C is correct answer. 20. Copper 2 sulfate is a soluble salt. Calcium sulfate is an insoluble salt. Which rule shows the suitable reactions for preparing a pure sample of the named salt? If we want to produce calcium sulfate, we would need calcium carbonate and dilute sulfuric acid. Well, this will work because it was going to give us calcium sulfate and carbon dioxide and water. So this would be a suitable reaction. So A is the correct answer. I'm sorry, A is not the answer because calcium sulfate is an insoluble salt, and you cannot produce an insoluble salt when calcium carbonate is also insoluble, so this reaction does not work. Let's look at another one, calcium sulfate, aqueous calcium chloride, and aqueous sodium sulfate. This will work because it is an insoluble salt. An insoluble salt means when you add two soluble salts together, you can create an insoluble salt. And now you have to remember this by heart. This is called precipitation method. So B is the correct answer. 21. Strontium displaces magnesium from molten magnesium chloride. And bromine displaces iodine from aqueous potassium iodide. Now strontium and bromine. Strontium is from group 2. This is from group 7. Bromine is from group 7, which the row describes the change of reactivity down the group 2 and group 7 of the periodic table. Now the reactivity down the group, as barium is as magnesium is above strontium, as magnesium is above sodium, it replaces this one, so this is going to be more reactive. And since bromine replaces iodine, which is below it, so this is going to be more reactive. So as you can see, the group 7 one is going, the group 2 one is going to be, the lower you go, the more reactive it becomes, right? The reactivity increases. But for group 7, the lower you go, the less reactive it becomes, so it decreases. So C is the correct answer. 22. Element J and K are in the same period in the periodic table. J reacts with acid to produce sulfur and hydrogen. K reacts with sodium to form an ionic compound. Which statement of J and K is correct? Well, they are in the same period, we know that. J reacts with acid to produce salt and acid. So J is an alkali. It is an alkali, it is something basic. K reacts with sodium to form ionic compound. So K is definitely a non-metal. To form an ionic compound, you need both a cation and a negative ion, the positive ion, negative ion. So what is both correct? Well, they are both metals. Nope. An atom of J has more electrons. Nope. J are both non-metals. Nope. J is left of K in the periodic table. Yes, because J is a metal and K is a non-metal. So D is the correct answer. 23. Part of the periodic table is shown which element has high density, high melting point, and forms boron oxide. So we can see this colored compound, and it has high density, high melting point, and boiling point. Well, these are all indicators of a transition element, and transition elements are usually found in the middle of the periodic table, and therefore B is the correct answer. 24. The reaction of four metals W, X, Y, and Z are listed. Metal W displaces metal X from the oxide of metal X. Metal Y has a greater density to form positive ions than metal W. Aqueous ions of metal Z are reduced by metal X. Okay, so if a metal can displace a metal from the oxide of that metal, then you are going the W is going to be more reactive than X. And if a metal has a greater tendency than the other metal, then it's going to be more reactive. So Y is more reactive than W. And then X is being aqueous metal C can be reduced by metal X. So X is more reactive than Z. So this is the most reactive to least reactive, but the question is asking least to most. So it's going to be in different order. So X, Z, X, W, and Y. So Z, X, W, and Y. So C is the correct answer. 3 of the experiment J, K, and L are set up to investigate rusting. Now rusting requires 2 conditions, which is water and oxygen. In which experiment does the rusting occur? So here we have oxygen here, there's water, and there's no protection for the steel, and therefore this J is going to rust. It will rust. Let's look at K. If there is a painted iron. Now painting is one of the ways to prevent corrosion, prevent rusting. So this will not rust. And let's look at L. It is stainless steel. Now stainless steel will not rust. This is because there is a layer. Stainless steel is made out of carbon. It is made out of chromium as well. So chromium actually forms an oxide layer which protects the metal from corrosion, and therefore it will not rust. So the only one that will rust is J, So J, so C is the correct answer. 26. Silver is below copper in the reactivity series. Which row describes the reaction of silver? Well, reaction with steam. Silver is very unreactive. It is actually the most unreactive other than gold. So it will not react with any steam whatsoever, so no reaction, and it will not react simply by reacting with acid. So yeah, so A is the correct answer. 27. Iron is galvanized by coating it with zinc. Brass is made by mixing copper with zinc. Which rows describe reasons for each of the uses of zinc? Now the reason for galvanizing iron is to prevent corrosion. The reason for making brass is to produce a harder metal, because remember, brass is an alloy. An alloy and brass is made up of 70% copper and 30% zinc. Okay, 28. The diagram shows a stage of purification in dirty water. In the dirty water, sand, fine gravel, and so the water is going to trickle down from the top layer to the bottom layer, and eventually you're left with a fairly purified water. It's not completely purified, but it's fairly clean, and this is a process known as filtration. Moving on. Which substance in polluted air damages stonework and kills trees? Well, this is the sulfur dioxide in air. Once it is reacted with water from the clouds, it's going to form acid rain, which is sulfuric acid. H2SO4 is sulfuric acid, and this sulfuric acid will corrode the stonework and the buildings and limestones and to kill trees. So D is the correct answer. 30. Ammonium nitrate is a fertilizer. Its additive fuels to crops grow. Slake slime is an alkali and additive fuels to reduce acidity of soil. Ammonium nitrate and slake slime should not be added to a fuel at the same time, because they react with each other to form a gas C. This is absolutely true, because ammonium, and as we can see, this calcium hydroxide is an alkali or a base. It's a base. And when you react a base with an ammonium salt, you form something called a gas called ammonia and water as the product, the only product. So ammonia is going to be formed, and it's very pungent. It's really smelly. So yeah. 31. The scheme shows 4 stages in the conversion of sulfur from sulfuric acid. In which stage is a catalyst used? Well, catalyst is used, this is known as the contact process, and it is used only in the conversion of SO2 plus oxygen and SO3 is going to. So B, in stage B, you're going to use it. Now 32, which element has an oxide that is used as a food preservative? Food preservative, we always use sulfur oxides. They're very good at preventing food from being, it preserves food, so D is the correct answer. 33. Which substance gives off carbon dioxide on heating? Well, this is limestone, because limestone is calcium carbonate, and when you heat it, when you decompose it, this is called thermal decomposition, by the way. If you heat it, it's going to form a calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is going to be formed, so B is the correct answer. 34. Which compound has the most CH2 groups in one molecule? Well, for this we could draw all of it, but the easy one here is butanol, because butanol, let's draw butanol. Butanol is somewhat, it looks like this. So we can add the H here, and you can see there are 2 CH2, CH2, CH2. There are 4 CH2, but the others only have 2 each. And therefore C is the correct answer. 35. Methane methanes react with. There are actually only 3 of them. 3 of them, as you can see. This is not. So 1, 2, 3. Only 3 of them. Okay, sorry. 35. Methane reacts with chlorine in the presence of the ultraviolet. So this is known as a substitution reaction. substitution reaction that only happens with the alkanes. And so here when methane reacts with chlorine, the hydrogen atoms are going to be substituted by the chloride atoms. So it's going to form this one as a byproduct and this one also as a byproduct, but it's not going to form hydrogen, so A is the wrong answer. It is not produced. 36. Ethene reacts with both hydrogen and steam. Which rules about this reaction is correct? Okay, so if you react ethene with hydrogen, we call it a hydrogenation reaction. But if you this is with hydrogen, but if you react ethene or any other alkene with steam, if you react it with steam, it is going to be called hydration. And let's look at the options here. Hydrogen, the type of reaction is substitution. That is wrong, because every alkene will undergo an addition reaction. Addition reaction is very important. So hydrogen is going to be an addition reaction. The catalyst used is going to be nickel, and the temperature, although not mentioned here, is going to be 200 degrees Celsius. So B is the correct answer. 37. Which type of reaction occurs when ethanol is converted into ethanoic acid? Now the difference here is only the O2, or otherwise the double bond, the carbon double bond. And so there are two oxygen atoms instead of only one of them, and therefore we can say this is an oxidation reaction. We just add two oxygen, so D is the correct answer. 38. Hydrolysis of polymer P produces the three compounds shown. Okay, we can see that this is polymer. Okay, we can see that these are all amino acids because represented by the different amino acids, because it represents, this one is not shaded, this one is slightly shaded, this is very shaded, and they represent different side chain of the amino acids. So what is the structure of polymer P? Well, hydrolysis is basically broken down. So this is the broken down form of these three compounds. Well, we have to add them back together to form this polymer. So let's start with the first one. As you can see, one hydrogen is going to be reacting with OH. So they're going to form water. So there is no H anymore, so NH. So that's correct. And CO, yes, and it's going to pair up with another NH from the other side. The CO is going to be there, and the OH are going to get out. So NH is going to react with that again. So A is the correct answer. This seems reasonable. Now 39. Which statement about the unsaturated hydrocarbons is correct? Well, CH3, CH2, okay, there's a double bond, it's an unsaturated hydrocarbon. Well, this is correct, because an unsaturated hydrocarbon basically contains one or more double bonds. Carbon-carbon double bonds, basically. Carbon-carbon double bonds is very important. One or two or three or more carbon-carbon double bonds. This is the meaning of unsaturated hydrocarbon. So A is the correct answer. 40. The equation shows the formation of a polymer called Kafka. Okay, which will describe Kafka. And while you might be looking at this diagram and saying, "Oh no, look at the diagrams. It's like it has like these hexagonal ring structures, and we haven't learned those things in the syllabus or something, blah blah blah." But the thing is, you can actually solve this if you just know the concept. So the question is asking about polymer and not about the skeletal formula, which you will not learn at the IGCSE level, but you will learn them at the A level. But besides that, let's focus on the question. How the polymer is formed? Well, as you can see, there is a dicarboxylic acid, and there is the amine group, the diamine group. And because the di meaning two, and there are two of them on each side, And when two different monomers react, we call this a condensation reaction. It's a condensation polymerization. So A and B are not correct. C and D, that's checked. Okay, the type of polymer that's going to form, well, as you can see, the dicarboxylic acid and diamine group are going to react, so it's going to have this. So this is called the amide linkage. In amide linkage, or it is the same as peptide bond. If you might have known in biology, it's called peptide. In chemistry, it's called amide linkage. So this is going to be a polyamide. And therefore, this C is the correct answer. Now we reached the end of the past paper. This is a very recent one, which is in 2022. So I hope you understand every single question that I have explained. If you would like more elaboration, please comment down below. And thank you. And I just want to say thank you for watching. And I hope you learned something today, or something new today that you didn't know. So thank you. Also do like, subscribe, and share if you would like some more content. Please be sure to say, because I usually only do the variants too. So bye bye, have a nice day.